This is episode 50 of the Fire Protection Podcast, powered by InspectPoint. Today, my guest is Bob Caputo of the American Fire Sprinkler Association, the AFSA. It's crazy. This is episode 50 already. I know I haven't put out a few this year, but yeah, a lot more on the docket with the Fire Protection Podcast, and great to kick off episode 50 with Bob. We have an upcoming AFSA convention in early September, which is really cool to promote, and we'll be there, the InspectPoint and the Fire Protection Podcast. And so, and obviously all the vendors, it's the, like Bob says in the episode, it's the biggest fire sprinkler show in the entire world, which is really cool to kind of be involved with. Bob's a mainstay in the fire protection industry. It's really cool to get his take on a bunch of different topics. And kind of the trend of the industry toward that recurring revenue, inspection, and service kind of business. And then obviously getting into Bob's background and where he came from, where he cut his teeth, and it was really good to chat with him. So hopefully you like the episode. Like and subscribe, and yeah, we'll see you at AFSA here in early September. And onto the podcast. Thanks. All right. Thanks, Bob, for joining the Fire Protection Podcast today. What is the temperature down there today?
Well, I'm in Dallas, and it's only about 103. Been a very hot summer.
Yeah, I forgot. I was talking to somebody in Austin, and they've had like the record days above 100 degrees or something.
My home is now in the Phoenix area, so it's only cooler here than it is home. My wife keeps asking why we moved from Carlsbad, seaside, 70 some odd degrees, 73 degrees today. So.
Oh man, what were you doing? What were you doing out in Carlsbad? Who were you working for?
I owned my own company there, Consolidated Fire Protection.
Oh wow.
My brother John still owns a small sprinkler company in the San Diego County area, Vista, California.
Oh, nice.
Two of my 4 kids are still there.
Wow. So I guess let's go back to your background and start beginning. How did you? Weirdly enough, I always want to know how people got into fire protection, right?
Well, interestingly, I've been in fire protection since dinosaurs were on the planet. I was part of the system that cooled the Earth's core. Let's see. I was in the Navy, and when I was in the military, on shipboard fire sprinkler systems were part of the thing that I had learned. And I'd had a back injury, and I went to work in a shore-based operation that was doing modifications to shipboard fire sprinkler systems. And so my intent when I got out of the Navy was to go to law school, and I took all the LSATs and, was prepared to do that. Got married right after I got out of the Navy, instant family, and had opportunities in the fire sprinkler business. And it just kind of stuck. I mean, it's a great business. It's a fun business. You get to see every kind of thing out in your community. It's fire and life safety. You get to save lives and property. There's a lot of pride in that. So it just kind of stuck. And 45-ish years later, I'm still trying to decide if this is what I want to do for the rest of my life.
Right. Yeah, I'm 20 years this year myself, which is kind of crazy that I've been doing this long. But a lot of people come out of the Navy that go into fire, like John Mackey, who I know, he came out of the Navy, Jack Kofelt out of the Navy, bunch of others. It's interesting. It's maybe they get a taste of it in their stint in the Navy and then kind of keep going with it. So
I think what happens, the beautiful thing about military service or college, whichever, when you're in that age group, you're still trying to figure out what and who you're going to be for the rest of your life. And, when you're in the military, you learn opportunities. You also learn responsibility and a whole lot of things about pride and esprit de corps and things that you may or may not have actually been ready for when you got into the service. But what you learn in this service can become your career.
right.
Unless your job is blowing stuff up, there's not a lot of jobs doing that in the civilian world. But from the reality point of view, you know, a lot of people grow up in that time frame serving. So I appreciate everybody who serves. I don't know if you know this, but only 1% of Americans serve in the military. So we're a pretty rare group.
Yeah, I did not know that. Wow, and it's probably it might have dropped right over the last. I don't know. Maybe it hasn't, but
No, it's possible.
yeah,
But it's a good place to grow up. You know, solid, structured background
yep,
for guys like me who didn't necessarily know what they wanted to be if they grew up.
right, yeah. I know in um, I work with API Group, big company, right? I know they hire a lot of their management out of like West Point and other places like that too, because of the structure and leadership. You know, it's interesting to kind of see that, and I know they're proud of that too. So
Yeah, and you know, that's a great point. Really, really solid companies look for solid leadership, and leadership is not something you're necessarily born with. It's something that you learn along the way. And I do think that API is stronger for their. I mean, not everybody in their group comes out of the military, but I think a lot of them do. I think that's a great thing.
yeah, yeah. Speaking of leaders, like back, 45, 40, even throughout, like any mentors out there that
Oh
kind
man,
of
yeah,
that
absolutely.
carved your career, I guess.
Oh, absolutely. You know, Jim Lewis, who's gone now, he was killed in a motorcycle crash, but his son James still runs the company in Kansas City, American Fire.
Oh
Uh,
yeah.
Jim absolutely was more than just a mentor. He was a life coach for me, somebody who I think about on a very, very regular basis. Jim was awesome, a true Christian who walked the walk, talked the talk, believed in people, you know, people first, and just a great business guy. Carol Garvin out on the West Coast. Carol
Yep.
Garvin worked with and for many years. I probably learned more about business issues. Carol's a really solid business guy. He's still around. And I got to say, Russ Levitt,
Yeah, yeah.
Russ and I have been competitors. We've been teaching partners. We've been business partners. We're more like brothers than friends. And Russ is somebody I really, really respect, look up to, and never fail to learn something from.
Yeah.
Jack Medovich is again another brother by choice that
Yeah.
I'm inspired by and hope to be more like pretty much any given day of my life. So I would say those. I mean, I've had people have influence on my life other than those guys, but if I had to pick those people that have had the most influence in my life, I mean, I wouldn't even be in this job if it wasn't for Jack or for Russ. Russ suggested that I pursue this opportunity, and Jack's the one who really made it happen, more or less. So
Yeah, it's interesting. We Inspect Point, the software company that's kind of partnered here, is that was the first association we joined, is AFSA, and I knew it from being in my Tyco and Viking days, that very powerful association, and as well as others too. You got to get involved in the trade associations, but AFSA was the first one for us, and it's interesting to see, since we're not even little almost 10 years old at this point, just the transition, kind of when you kind of took the realm and kind of brought back that fire. And obviously you had the board and all the members and all that, but I think the leader being definitely one of the key people in fire protection in the US, it matters, right? So
appreciate
how
your
was
I
yeah,
appreciate you saying that, Drew, but I have to tell you, this is a team sport.
yeah,
You know, when I got here, I encouraged the staff to understand that their primary job was to try to make me look good, and they've done a really fantastic job of that. You know, I take the credit for the work that you know, we have a very dynamic team, both on the administrative side and incredibly so on the tech support side. You know, we have
yes.
I think we have probably the strongest tech support team anywhere in the industry, and awfully proud of them and proud to take credit for a lot of what they do.
That's great. What was the transition like going from kind of for-profit contracting and national accounts and all that engineering to kind of the association side?
Well, clearly there's a big difference
Yeah.
between managing a nonprofit and the rules and regulations that govern that particular thing. And believe it or not, there is an association of associations, the American Society of, I don't even know, I have their books, but ASAEs, ASAE is the group. And so the folks on our administrative side just got back actually from their convention. Lots of great ideas, lots of encouraging things that have to do with managing nonprofits and associations. You know, me, I'm a fire protection guy. And so having to learn the other half of that. But you mentioned earlier about leadership, and leadership doesn't change no matter what. So as far as bringing more ideas and more focus and leadership to an organization that might have struggled a little bit prior to my getting here, having been through a couple of different leadership opportunities that didn't work out. You know, I came in kind of being patient and not thinking we had to change anything overnight. We have a great team of people. A lot of people have been here a very long time. I don't know if you know this, but I've been teaching seminars for AFSA for over 20 years. So
Oh, wow.
it's not like I was a stranger to the organization. I represented AFSA on a number of NFPA committees. And in addition to teaching seminars for AFSA, I'm still teaching seminars for NFPA, which is kind of the grandfather of all things fire and life safety. So, you know, being plugged in helped. But for the most part, you know, John Denhart was here before I got here. I think he had the ship moving in the right direction on the technical support side. The one thing I really focused on and continue to focus on is the organization's mission. And we are a training organization whose focus is on helping grow open shop contractors. And frankly, the birth of AFSA was the result of not having an apprenticeship program for open shop sprinkler contractors.
Right.
That wasn't available 43 years ago, and it wasn't going to come out of NFSA, where most of us were members.
Yep.
So today we have as good an apprenticeship program as anybody. And frankly, we have a lot of overseas organizations, UK and European, as well as Central and South American organizations coming to us and saying, hey, you know, can we access your training programs?
Right.
And so that's really cool. So, you know, we really do focus on our mission, which is the training, not just for installers, but, you know, we've got design school beginning and intermediate design school for designers. I don't think you can go anywhere in this country and not have a sprinkler contractor say, I need more designers.
Right.
You know, one of the things we've recently developed is a scholarshiping program to try to help feed a few more, maybe it's 15 or 20 more designers into the pipeline every year that we possibly can.
Wow. Wow.
Probably the most dynamic thing we've introduced this year is called the VIP program, which is virtual instruction. And it really is the classroom portion of the apprenticeship program. When you think about it, apprentices need to they have to have the classroom training piece. Yeah. Some of them are on jobs long into the day or are pretty far away drive time from a classroom where they can be with an instructor. This allows them to participate with a solid instructor live, 2 hours, twice a month, from any laptop, you know, iPad, iPhone. We record the sessions. It's a relatively inexpensive way for the contractor to get their apprentices classroom training. And we went to DOL and got approval as not as a program. You know, the contractors have to have their own DOL approved program.
Sure.
Ours is a training program that's allowed to be used in conjunction with their, you know, admitted program. So, you know, those are the kind of things we've introduced since I've come aboard in supporting the mission of the organization of training. So those are
Yeah.
pretty exciting things.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy, like with with the advent of when COVID happened, everybody's gone virtual. If you hadn't already gone virtual,
Right.
and I always wondered, I'm like, how do apprenticeships programs happen? Obviously, if you're in locals, you have those locals around the country, but like the open shop side, I'm like, oh man, how do we get everybody together? There's a cost to get them to a certain location, and yeah, you could regionalize it, but I think it's a perfect option for, and if you got that approved through the Department of Labor, that's amazing, because now everybody has access to it, right? And you
Yeah.
don't have the cost of travel and lost time or whatever,
Yeah, and I don't want to confuse people. What we have approved is the training piece, the classroom piece. They still have to go through and have their apprentices in a program if they're participating in, prevailing wage work, because the DOL didn't want AFSA to have employees. But if you look at what CAFSA has done out in California, they've done a
Yep.
phenomenal job, not because California now has its
Yep.
certification program. So the CAFSA folks, the members there, have done a phenomenal job of putting together training programs, and I think they have like 5 labs throughout the state. But again, it's a very, very big state, and even their apprentices struggle to get from a job site to a training site. No, this is the classroom piece. The contractor still has to provide the OJT and the tactile
Yep.
learning experience and exposing people to physically doing things. But hopefully we are providing enough good materials for the contractors to make it easier, especially in those quote unquote flyover states. You're not going to get somebody in Colorado, New Mexico, Utah. These are big landmass areas, and there's jobs all over the place.
Oh yeah.
You're not going to get a guy after 8 hours worth of work to drive 4 hours to go to a classroom.
No.
If COVID's taught us anything, it's taught us that we can do distance learning successfully.
Yeah, it's a lot of good remote stuff. Obviously, it's the hands-on. You mentioned the valve labs and obviously what Cass is doing. Are you? I know I've been involved in some of your ITM classes, and actually did a couple guest appearances up in at General Air in Philadelphia. But are you guys doing anything yourself?
Well, we just moved into our new location in Richardson, Texas, and part of our location and build out includes a wet lab and a flow lab and a valve lab. So our lab is going to be incredible. We're in the process of building it out. We took a bit of time to find a landlord who would let us put a swimming pool in their building. So if you look at JCI's lab or Viking's lab, or the manufacturers have labs where they've built stuff out to showcase their materials. This is an independent lab where you see pretty much everything, but those ITM trainees are going to be able to come in 22 different risers.
Wow.
A static hydrant, a flowing hydrant. They'll physically, literally be able to flow water. They'll be able to stand behind a glass wall and watch sprinklers of every type spray water. We'll be able to show them the impact of obstructions like beam rules and ceiling fans and all those kinds and types of things.
Oh, that's cool.
We'll have a standpipe testing. We have a 500 GPM pump showing up at donation.
Nice.
And they'll learn how to do the annual fire pump test, or initiating, system acceptance fire pump testing with full-on flows, hose monsters, donating test kits for them to learn how to use that particular equipment. They'll learn how to use pitot tubes. I mean, just literally, there is not anything that flows water, needs to be inspected, needs to be tested. Apprentices, trainees, technicians can come to our lab and break it here so they don't break it in the field. And it's just going to be an incredible experience. So we have a training classroom for design school. We have a training classroom for ITM, and then we have all the flow lab stuff, the valve lab stuff, and the pump room lab. So people are going to be able to come here, I'm going to say no more than 4 to 6 months from now.
Oh,
and
nice.
I'm pretty sure once they spend a week here, they won't want to go home.
Yeah. By the way, if you need we've done this before, but if you want anything free from us, free subscription, what we've done with other valve labs is like, hey, here's a copy of an ITM platform, right? It's pretty cool stuff. But I cut my teeth at Tyco back in the day, and I was at an NFPA 25 training up in Rhode Island, and kind of had an idea, right, of like, why are we doing this on paper and pen? Why are we doing this, right? Isn't there a better way to document deficiencies and all that? So it's kind of funny, the lab spurred all that on, just because being hands-on is like, there's nothing else like it, right?
Yeah.
And obviously being in the field, there's nothing else like that either. So
Well, and that's absolutely true. And we want to take advantage of technology. One of the challenges with written reports, first of all, is reading some people's writing. Another is, sometimes those reports are laying on the floor of the truck if it's coffee spilled on them or burger wrappers. And in my career, I've asked an inspector, hey, what does this say? And they'll look at it and I don't know. You wrote it. How am I supposed to know what it says? Electronic reporting is clearly the best way to do record keeping, best way to transmit to an owner, best way to help the owner understand what deficiencies are, why they're important, why they need to get repaired, and help them understand. And that's one of the beautiful things about the NFPA 25 committee. When they put out the annex section 3.3.7 or now 3.3.8, depending upon your edition, but that whole table of deficiencies of what should be considered critical versus non-critical versus rising to the level of impairments. That's just a great tool for an inspector to open the book and show the owner or the owner's representative, hey, this is what the problem is, this is the finding, here's what the book says, and here's why it's important. Just another tool in communicating the importance. A lot of owners, they don't understand when their elevators don't work, their HVAC doesn't work, they get it, right? But when a fire sprinkler system doesn't work, they don't know.
No, right. Yeah, and referencing it back to the code, and you don't even need a book anymore. NFPA Link's done a pretty good job with stuff, and we've got some pretty cool stuff that we're working on with NFPA to kind of push the digital side forward.
NFPA Link is awesome.
Yeah.
I hear so many people tell me, oh, I miss having the PDF. Link is way better than having PDFs. You get the handbook commentary. You can download it to your computer for use offline of the books you use the most of. You can query all the standards or a few of the standards by keywords or phrases. It's anybody who hasn't tried Link needs to go to the NFPA website and do I guess they give you a 14-day or maybe, I don't know if it's a week or two trial use, but they have such a great staff of folks at the NFPA who can coach you through how to use it better than you think it's so robust, it's so powerful that I'm still a book guy because I'm really old, but man, are you kidding me? I use Link every day.
Yeah, Link's great, and they're coming out with some new stuff that's even beyond that, which is even kind of more forward thinking, right?
Well, you think about technology. Just think about computers. I carry this iPhone, but it's not really a phone. It's a computer that works as a phone. But you think about storage, you can go out and buy a 1 terabyte flash drive. When I was a kid, if you had a terabyte, it meant you'd been bitten by a pterodactyl.
You don't even need a flash drive anymore. You have a Dropbox or a Google Drive that's 3 terabytes, and it's unlimited in some server that Amazon owns.
What's cool about our industry, though, is no matter how advanced technology gets, and no matter what tools we can find to apply technology, when it comes to installing fire sprinkler systems, you still have to pick the pipe up, stick it in the hole, and turn it to the right, and no one's going to automate that.
Nope.
And so, if you have children at home who don't know what they want to be when they grow up, sprinkler design school, send them to me. I'll send you back some designers, fitters, fitters, technicians. We provide all that kind of training. Second, third generation sprinkler contractors. There's opportunities now that didn't exist before for fire protection engineering degrees. Oklahoma State, Eastern Kentucky, Maryland, Worcester, WPI. There's great programs for those of us who brought our kids up in this industry to go out and get a degree and come back and run the company better than we did.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so many opportunities, and it's kind of this niche industry that not a lot of people know about. And you know, you go in a building, you look up, and people I'm with randomly or friends or whatever, they're like, "Why are you looking up?" I'm like, "Well, and I explained to this a lot of my newer staff at the company. I'm like, you're going to start looking up. You're going to notice where exit signs are. You're going to notice if there's an extinguisher on the floor, or the sprinklers are covered by a beam or whatever. So it's you don't know about it, and you don't want to know about it, because fire protection's it's
It's special.
it's special. It's supposed to work. It's a pain for building owners because they don't know what they're getting. But at the end of the day, it's saving lives. It's saving that building, and it's should be bringing down their insurance premium at some point,
Well,
because
of course, but it's also code driven
yes,
and required. I think there's a lot of fear of the unknown. I think they think, it's all Hollywood systems, right? Deluge systems, right? When one sprinkler goes off or going to go off, they're going to cause water damage. They don't understand why it matters most that they have. I'm fond of saying that when seconds count, first responders are minutes away. But
yeah,
that fire sprinkler system is going to work immediately. It's going to control and limit that fire and limit the damage, even with water damage. We're cleaning up water, but we're not cleaning up a business that's now lost, sending people home without a job and worse. So, we were talking about labor and opportunities. One of the things that our industry has always been about, or at least a lot of cases, has been nepotism, right? How did you get into the business? Did you have a parent or an uncle or somebody who got you into the business? I mean, I personally have 4 children, and 3 of them are in fire protection.
wow,
A brother in fire protection. He has children in fire protection. I mean, think about how you get into this thing, a neighbor or an uncle or somebody. It's not something you grow up in school knowing about fire sprinklers or our fire and life safety systems in general terms, whether it's alarms or, HID system, whatever it happens to be. We as an industry need to do a much better job of outreach to encourage non-family members to see us as a career. How do we get into elementary schools, high schools? There's a bunch of community colleges out there that do fire protection programs for kids that want to become firefighters, but they're all not going to find jobs in firefighting. Yet we have so many opportunities, and our industry needs so many more people. Every contractor I talk to, when I ask, what's your biggest challenge? And they say, finding good people.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the things AFSA is focused on. Well, I don't think so. I know so. We're very, very focused on recruiting and encouraging and getting out with guidance counselor organizations and making sure they know what our opportunities are. We're doing more training with facility managers. We're doing more training with a broader group and a better focus, just so that we can attract more people to our industry for our members. And I think it's one of the important things, that we do. I also think I think that fire sprinkler contractors who are not members of one of the trade associations really need to take inventory of their business and their futures.
Yeah, I don't understand it. I mean, I think the last one of the stats I got, it was only like 30 to 40% of the market is a member of a trade association.
Not even that much.
It's not even that.
It's half that.
It's crazy. There's so much information, and I just don't get it. It's a small line item on their expenses, and so much value.
It's minuscule. We have contractors who tell us that when they've had challenges where they've used our tech support to solve a problem, and that alone solved the problem that paid their dues for 5 years.
Right.
Just one phone call, one email saved them more money than their membership could cost for 5 years. And we have literally, we turn around technical questions in within 24 hours.
Yeah. And I mean, just the marketing alone, like being a member of a trade association, if I'm hiring a plumber, HVAC, pest, if they're not part of the association, they're not coming to my house.
Well, good for you. That's a great thought.
I don't know.
We'll have to start a billboard campaign that says Drew Slocum says.
That's funny. Yeah. So podcast. I guess there's so you got an upcoming event I hear about.
Yeah, we have our annual convention down in in Orlando, Florida, Bonnet Creek, Hilton.
That's nice.
Well, our trade show is the biggest fire sprinkler centric trade show literally on the planet.
That's
Uh,
nice.
our booths are sold out, and we have people in booths out in the corridors. We have no more booth space, and we have a waiting list. We've got more people, members, contractor members, reserved this year signing up. And it's a record year for us, but so was last year and the year before.
Right.
But we're seeing more and more activity. Of course, we do a free workshop day for AHJs in the area. We do a plan review class. We do that every year, and that's filling up pretty well. So yeah, we're pretty excited. Our conference, over 60 technical topics for seminars. We're not broadcasting this year like we have the last 2 years with Zoom rooms, because it's just been difficult.
Yep.
We've had a lot of people take advantage of that, but it's just been difficult with the hotels not having the bandwidth to support us, and it's very frustrating if it doesn't work seamlessly. But
Sure.
hopefully future years we'll get that done right when we get the bandwidth to be able to do that. But we have our apprenticeship competition, 7 finalists, and they'll compete for top dog prizes from all the regions, and so that's always a lot of fun.
That's fun because I mean, I just being on the floor a lot, and we'll be there again obviously this year, but it's just it's kind of cool to hear the threading of pipe or the grooving of pipe, and them
Smell of
installing.
cutting oil.
It's so cool. It's so cool to hear that while the convention's going on, right?
Yeah.
There's nothing else like it, right?
Yeah, now we're pretty excited, man. We just, everybody here, it's work, but it's fun.
Yeah, it is fun. I guess obviously there's our podcast here, but then there's a fire sprinkler podcast, and there's these new guys. I'm going to be on their show in a couple weeks, the Dope and Tape podcast, which are a bunch of it's like a fitter podcast.
Yeah.
And they just it's a lot of fun. They do it twice a week, but they're all getting together down in Florida to kind of do some combos, but it's all around the AFSA event. And yeah, it's kind of really cool to see the buzz about it.
Yeah, I've heard a lot of positive comments about the Dope and Tape guys, which, by the way, is a controversial question for fitters. If you use
Right?
dope and tape, do you put the dope first or the tape first?
What's your answer?
I don't think you should use dope and tape. I think you should pick one
Yeah,
of the.
one or the other, right? I think it's kind of fun that they kind of put that out there. But I think the Bobby does use both. I could be wrong.
So does my
Bobby.
brother. It's always blown my mind. Teflon tape's not a sealant; it's a lubricant, right? And
Yeah.
so, there are dopes out there that are. You have to remember, when I came into the industry, you mixed your own dope with linseed oil and Portland cement, and that's why when you go to those old systems, you need a damn hammer or a 48H compound wrench to get anything apart.
Right. Yeah, it's isn't it somewhere areas of the world they use hemp rope or something, don't they?
Well, I've seen people cork threads with hemp. I'm not sure that's a legal thing to do.
Yeah, it's probably. I mean,
we should not be promoting things that are
no. Hey, you got a little off track there. So yeah, look forward to obviously AFSA in a few weeks here, and excited to if you can get down there, great. It's in a great part of the country in Orlando, and yeah, it kind of kicks off the whole fall. Everybody coming out of the summer. It's the kind of the first event.
Well, speaking of kicking off, our opening night party is at Universal Studios. It's got a magic theme to it, and we have exclusive access to all this Harry Potter parts.
Oh, that's awesome.
And that's just the opening party. That's not even our ending party. So that should be a lot of fun, a lot of family activity there. Believe it or not, we have a lot of folks who are bringing their kids to Orlando because it's Orlando, but we also have a lot of people who are signed up who are just adding that one night party. I mean, it's a real attraction for a lot of members.
Oh, that's cool. I didn't know that was happening.
Oh, that's
I heard Harry Potter's like one of the best things in Orlando to see.
yeah. So our opening night party is something you don't want to miss.
Well, cool. Yeah, we'll definitely get that out when we release this in a week or so. Kind of last question before we kind of get going with evolution. What I've seen over fire protection over the last 10 years since doing Inspect Point is, the industry has been segmented, right? Sprinkler, fire alarm, and kind of the suppression end, kind of 3 categories. And then there's another life safety end, which is more on the life safety devices and stuff like that. And over the last 10 years and definitely the 5 years, a lot of that's coming together, right? So you're not just a sprinkler fitter anymore. You got to know more than just sprinkler, right? And it's still slow to be that way. I think it's still segmented. But what at least I've seen is, if you know everything, you're a dime, you're a needle in the haystack to find. If you can do alarm, if you can do everything, it seems like that's where the companies are kind of molding all these subsectors of fire protection together.
So
you see that? Do you see that as well?
Well, prior to coming here, I was a VP of training at Fire and Life Safety America, which is now Summit. And so I'm going to cover up this AFSA piece on my shirt for a minute and tell you my opinion. This is just observational. This is not AFSA. But at AFSA, at FLSA, our training program for fitters, I'm sorry, I apologize. I got to back up. Our training program for inspectors had nothing to do with being a fitter. Okay. Right. We took people that were either retiring from or who had never been a fitter. I don't think twisting pipe and installing and understanding NFPA 13 makes you an inspector. We wanted inspectors who had not been fitters, had not been alarm technicians, had not been hood people or E-light people or fire extinguisher people. We trained them in every one of those disciplines so that they could go to a building and review and look at the fire doors and do the 11-point inspection, the duct detectors and dampers. Testing a fire alarm system is not the same as fixing a fire alarm system. Inspecting a fire sprinkler system, I personally don't believe that being a fitter qualifies you to be an inspector. I want people, I want a whole new category of inspector. Now, here's the challenge. A lot of states have NICET requirements for inspectors. So if I'm doing fire alarm and fire sprinkler inspections, NICET will not give me credit for both for the same time frame. I have to be one or the other for 50% of the year or the other, right? So it's going to take me longer. If I have to have 3 years of practical experience or 5 years of practical experience to get a NICET certification, maybe let's say level 3 in water-based. If I'm doing both, I can't claim both all the time for fire sprinkler. I got to claim part of it for fire alarm if I'm trying to achieve both of those.
Right.
So there's a bit of a setback when you're cross-training. But I do honestly think that ultimately we will see a whole new breed of, so we have designers, we have fitters, we have, we're going to have inspection, testing, and maintenance technicians who maybe have never been a fitter, never been a fire alarm installer. They know how to test things. They know how to do inspections of things, and they know how to write reports, but they don't know how to fix things. Right. And I actually prefer that. We would have fire alarm technicians go out and find a panel with some troubles. Well, they only have 8 hours to do the inspection, and they spend the first 2 of them trying to clear the panel before they do anything. I don't want them to do that. I want them to tell the owner, we can't do the inspection. You've got these trouble signals. Those have to be corrected first.
Right.
But I will also say, well, you see a lot of mergers and acquisitions in this business in the last couple of years, which is a huge trend. It's had a big impact on us as an association. And frankly, what sells companies is a recurring revenue services. So, the multiplier on EBITDA valuation of a company is much heavier with recurring revenue than it is with new construction.
Yep.
New construction might have big numbers, but value comes in the form of recurring revenue streams. And so I think your point of seeing more activity in the ITM world is a result of the value plan or the value of companies and the mergers and acquisitions piece. People may be positioning themselves to be purchased as an exit plan from a business they've been running for the last 25 years. And so I do think that the ITM piece is bulletproof when it comes to economic up and down turns, because you still have to do the ITM, whether business is slow or business is fast, whether buildings are even empty. If the building's empty, you're still required to inspect and test the system. So it's a solid piece of the business. And I think a lot of people are gravitating more into that area, to your point.
Yeah. Well, we call it recession proof or recession resistant, well, recession proof and pandemic proof, right? Pandemic, we saw a lot of people have to go virtual. Literally a month, they were off for a month doing inspections, and maybe that March timeframe during COVID. Literally a month later, they were back flooded with work, service calls, inspections, and yeah, construction might have been shut down, but inspections, fire life safety was not. And
well, that's because the two associations managed to get our industry determined to have been critical. Or
yeah, that was big. I forgot about that. I forgot you got, and then NFPA did something as well. Obviously, put this, and all the HJs kind of bought in. Not bought into it, but like announced that to the buildings. And hey, we still have to be protecting these buildings, even though nobody's here.
Absolutely, and not only that, even if you're in a hospital or nursing home, hey, you're protecting people. And, I'm fond of repeating something I've heard many years ago, and that is the three biggest causes of fire will always be men, women, and children. We're not getting them out of the building. And so the systems still need to be functional, still need to be inspected and tested and repaired. So, this has become a huge part of the business that wasn't necessarily as pervasive, 30 years ago.
No, it's been fun for us, the ride. So, well, we look forward, obviously, to the AFSA convention. Look forward to seeing you guys. And one more quick question. This is a quick response round. So I have this little round that talk to you about different things. But what is your favorite standard out of all the NFPA standards?
Oh my, that's really a difficult thing to say. I'm going to say 25.
Okay, all right. Same here. It's the most complicated one too, in my opinion.
Well, we have a lot of eyes. The reason I say that, and I'll make it really quick, is there's a lot of eyes on new systems, right? We have plan review and inspections and acceptance testing. A lot of systems out there where something changes, packaging might change, or storage methods might change, or tenants might change. And who's looking at all those systems to make sure they're still adequate for the current occupancy or the changes?
Sure.
I think NFPA 25 is, you don't park a car in your driveway for 3 years and not pay attention to it for 3 years and think it's going to run when you go to start it. These are mechanical systems. They need to be inspected and tested periodically, and if we expect them to work.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Cool. Well, thanks for having me.
Yeah, thanks, Bob. This is great. Love to chat more some other time, maybe at the convention, or obviously down the road. I'm sure not leaving fire life safety anytime soon. Once you're in the business, you usually don't get out. So,
well, that's why you'll probably find me dead at my desk. I'm here for life.
All right, thanks again.
All right, take care.
All right, take care.
Bye.
Yep. Bye. This was episode 50 of the Fire Protection Podcast, powered by Inspect Point. I want to thank Bob Caputo again from the AFSA to join me on today's and the 50th episode, right? A lot more to come. Can't wait to do episode 100 here soon. Yeah, big AFSA convention coming up. Make sure to check it out. We'll be in attendance as Inspect Point, and yeah, stop by and say hello. Talk to you soon.